Hello and welcome back to Landlord Coffee Talk, proudly presented by the Southern California Apartment Group. Sean Sherbetchin's office, your trusted expert in multi-unit properties. Join us for our informative 20-minute Q&A fire rounds where we aim to provide answers to those common questions that have been on your mind. Welcoming our guest, Louie Goros, today on this episode. Welcome, Louie.
Thank you very much for having me, Mary.
I'm
it's a
happy
pleasure
to
be
here. You are from Kingsbarn Real Estate Capital, and you are all things DST.
That's correct.
Fantastic. I'm excited to have you here because we're going to dive deep into our Q&A round. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
So I'm originally from Chicago, Illinois. I joined the Marine Corps right out of high school, which brought me to Southern California, and I've basically been out here since, going on 13 years.
Wow.
Married with kids. Right out of the military, I got into real estate, and I did a lot of apartment brokerage, so I kind of know your business a bit.
Oh yeah,
And,
it's fun, isn't it?
Yeah, and then I just crossed paths with the firm I'm with currently, Kingsbarn Real Estate Capital, and we ended up striking a deal, and I've been with Kingsbarn since, and I now lead our entire Delaware Statutory Trust channel.
Fantastic, Louie. Well, California's ever-changing tenant-favoring laws have really taken a toll on apartment owners. We are noticing that the older generation is becoming overwhelmed, and the newer generation really don't have the same desire to manage as their predecessors and prefer to be hands-off. In our office, we're hearing the letters DST often. And here we are with Louie today. So Louie, we're going to get into our first question. Our first question we get from a lot of our landlords is, what does DST stand for and what is a DST?
Wonderful. So a DST stands for Delaware Statutory Trust, and I can assure you that it has nothing to do with Delaware. Yeah. It's just that's where this specific trust originated.
Right.
What a DST is it's a specific trust that allows for 1031 exchange eligibility. So a commercial real estate asset, let's just call it a $50 million medical office building. It would be held into this trust, and then a 1031 investor, so someone selling, like, let's say, an apartment building, they could utilize the 1031 to defer their taxes, and then they could reinvest those proceeds into the trust where they have a fractional percentage of ownership.
Got it. So a pool of investors are investing in one asset.
Correct. Or they do have the ability to diversify.
Okay.
So they can go into one, two, or three.
Got
but they are investing into a percentage of a large institutional asset.
And these assets are close to them, close to home, or it could be anywhere in the United States?
Yeah, so we do invest heavily in California, in Southern California.
Okay.
But we're very opportunistic. So we're across the country, but we're going to be more geared towards primary markets. You're not going to see a whole lot of our product in tertiary or secondary type markets.
Got it. All right, well, we're going to get into our first question now that we've answered what a DST is. Who would be a good candidate for a DST?
Well, Mary, I would say someone that's looking to transition from more management intensive roles to a more passive role. So going from wealth generation to wealth preservation, where they are able to access a certain level of cash flow, but they also are able to achieve a certain level of peace of mind as well.
Right. So we have David. David is currently exploring the possibility of investing in a DST and has been presented with various investment options through the DST company he's working with. His options presented are from categories ranging from apartment buildings to retail centers. What are some of the classes, some categories within a DST company that can be presented to someone who's interested?
Excellent. So our firm, Kingsbarn Real Estate Capital, we've built our company on medical assets. We've done a lot of surgery centers, dialysis clinics like DaVita and Fresenius Medical Office. But then we really responded to demand in industrial, grocery-anchored retail, student housing. We're very agnostic when it comes to asset classes. It's just, like I was saying earlier, we're very opportunistic. But all of our buildings that we offer are going to be Class A, high levels of occupancy, and fully stabilized.
Amazing. So a whole array of classes to possibly choose from. And that could get overwhelming for someone who's sitting there trying to decide where to invest their money, So with that said, what are some asset classes that are favorable?
So before I get into that, I would say I never like to treat asset classes as one big broad stroke. But obviously with the way things are this year and last year, there are asset classes that are in favor more than others. And I would say Apartments and student housing are still, high up there in terms of being desirable assets. Office is definitely catching a lot of heat right now just because of the remote work. But we've been very successful with office buildings, but more Class A, well-amenitized product that is close to executive housing. So we've been very successful with office. But I will say, apartments, student housing, and industrial overall are going to be the most desirable.
Most desirable. And then those are not so favorable are?
Office. Office is catching a lot of heat. But
Okay.
like I was saying, office that's Class B, Class C,
Right.
those are tough
Do you
ones.
think eventually office will make a comeback?
Personally, I do. I
Yeah.
do. I mean, when you're already seeing large tech companies,
Right.
wanting their employees back, people need people.
Yeah,
And
the town hall feeling of getting together.
exactly.
Yeah.
So synergy and productivity is just down. I mean,
Right.
you need, and this is me speaking, you need separation.
Right, yeah. Well, now that we're familiar with options offered through a DST, this segues into the management portion of the DST. I've got Josh and his wife. They're such a lovely couple. This is one of their questions. So Josh and his wife, Lucy, sold their 16-unit Los Angeles property and no longer wish to invest in any other multi-unit properties. They're out of this Los Angeles. Instead, they have researched the possibility of taking their $2 million exchange money and investing in a DST, a portfolio of college housing to be exact. One of their main concerns is the lack of control they will have in their investment. They were very hands-on with their property they owned for years. And in fact, Josh says, I will be handing over $2 million to a company that I will not have much control over. We feel a lot of our landlords that are wanting to pull out of their apartment business, income property no more, wanting to invest in DSTs. I do have a little hurdle that they have to go over first. And how long does it take for someone to get over that hurdle? What are some advice you could give to someone to, make sure that they're comfortable with their decision and moving to a DST that they won't have any more management control over?
Yeah, so that objection, which is the number one objection
Right.
of DSTs, is also the number one benefit to some. It just really does boil down to what they're looking to accomplish in their investment career, right?
Yeah.
But we are a firm that does this every single day for a living. So you have an entire team of real estate professionals that are managing their real estate. And to answer your second part of that question, I always employ investors to actually look at the track records of sponsors. How did those assets that they've done in the past perform?
Okay.
And do as much due diligence on the sponsor as they can.
Got it. And the sponsor being the DST company
Correct.
that offers these portfolios.
That's
and
correct.
the assets.
That's what we're
Okay.
considered a sponsor.
A sponsor.
Yes.
Got it. So then this brings me over to Jean. So Jean is ready to pull the trigger in signing over her $1 million exchange money to a DST in the next 30 days. She's done all of her due diligence and she's ready. She was concerned about the illiquidity of this. Although she's confident about her decision, what are her options if she needs the money within 2 years after she's invested it? She said, I'm giving the money away, I'm confident, I have done all my due diligence, but what if I need this in 2 years? What is a typical cycle of a DST? How long should she expect to keep the money within the DST?
Historically, our hold period is right around 5 to 7 years. If there's debt in place, there's a 10-year maximum because one of the rules that sponsors like us have to follow is you cannot refinance the DST. So if there's 10-year money in place, there's a maximum of a hold period.
Okay.
But historically, it's 5 to 7 years.
5 to 7 years.
I like to tell all my investors, plan on being along for the ride, right?
Okay.
But if life happens, an emergency arises, there are 2 separate avenues that they can explore in order to access that liquidity early.
Okay.
There is a secondary market for DST interests,
Okay.
so they could hire a broker. The broker would charge them a commission of, to my knowledge, right around 3 to 5% is the going rate, and then they can sell their ownership to a buyer on the secondary market. They can also borrow against their interest, or they can sell it outright to a direct. There's lenders out there that will buy interest or allow them to borrow against it. But one thing about Kingsbarn is we will do everything in our power to accommodate the investor prior to them having to go those 2 different routes. So if we have someone coming in with $1 million, let's say, and they're looking to exit with $1 million, we could just do an even swap.
Okay.
That's one of the things that we'll be able to do.
I love it. So there are options for those who do need to pull out. There are some options through the Kingsbarn.
Absolutely.
Company. Fantastic. Now, let's say there's a death in the family. Would that be eventually passed on to the next of kin?
Yes.
Okay.
The same benefits that apply in, fee simple ownership would apply in the DST.
Got it. Now, also, Jean asked, if I complete the whole time successfully, what happens after? Do I get my investment back full plus the profits that I've made? Do I lose? What's the typical cycle end?
So all of our, all the sponsors do things differently, but
Okay.
what I can say is, with Kingsbarn, we do not participate in any of the appreciation. So when we go to sell, whatever that level of appreciation is will flow to the investors based on their pro rata share of the investment. We let our investors know 6 months, even up to a year in advance when we're gearing up to sell,
Okay.
so that they're able to get their affairs in order entirely. If they want to stay with us, it's very seamless. It's a smooth transition. We'll show them what we have coming down the the pipeline, and then 2 days after they sell the DST, they'll go into the next DST and start earning income immediately.
Okay.
If they want to exchange into something else, like let's say they want to go back into apartments,
Sure.
they can do that. They can also cash out if they want to, but they're not married to the DST. They're not married to our firm.
Got it. Okay, incredible. So Louie, going back to the whole time and successfully completing the whole time, we talked about obviously making profits, which is great. Has there ever been a loss where you finished your whole time and you've got less than what you've invested?
With our company, we've never sold a single DST at a loss. We've never lost a single investor
That's
dollar.
huge.
We've never even broken even. So we've delivered appreciation on every single full cycle DST
Wow.
from us. But I can't say that about other sponsors. But if you do invest with Kingsbarn, you have a very high chance of getting appreciation on your investment.
Fantastic. And going back to, again, completing the whole time, you can invest into another DST within your company. Again, you're not married to investing in a DST with your company. You can certainly pull out and invest back into apartment buildings if you wish.
Correct.
With that said, is that ever continuous cycle of exchanging? Does that ever end?
I like to, a lot of investors, they live by the saying, swap until you drop.
Okay.
So in order to continue to defer taxes
Right.
and also depreciation, if you decide to cash out, you do have depreciation and recapture, but in order to continue to keep deferring, you have to exchange.
I see.
So we make it very simple to just keep going, keep exchanging.
Okay.
But yes, that is, you do have to continue to do
You
that.
do have to continue in order to keep deferring. to
Now,
pay
but when you do, God forbid, when you pass away, the heirs do receive a step up in
Right.
basis. They can cash out and do whatever they please.
Amazing. Yeah, I know this is all great information, but for those contemplating a DST, where exactly do they start? What do they do?
You'd be very surprised at how much information is accessible online.
Yes, it's very overwhelming.
But all of the DST sponsors are tracked. Well, all the main sponsors, which there's around 50 main sponsors that are all tracked by the Mountain Dell Consulting Report.
Right.
So you can go online and see what all the top sponsors are doing. We're the 5th largest sponsor, Kingsbarn, but we're by far the smallest in terms of the top 10 largest sponsors.
Okay.
In terms of employee size. But from a dollar raised per year standpoint, we are number 5.
Okay.
But going online, looking at the different sponsors and seeing what they offer, I think that's a great spot to start.
And let's say they choose a DST company. How intricate can they get with their interview process? Could they ask for sample contracts? Could they ask for portfolios and how well they've performed?
With us, yes.
Okay.
We're an open book. So prior to anyone investing, they're given access to, it's called our online portal, our document vault. So they can get inside and see all the properties that we have available,
Right.
and then all the due diligence items for them to inspect prior to investing. They're able to look at all of our prior performance, like I mentioned, as well as references of investors.
Can they go as far as talking to some of your clients that have invested in DSTs?
Absolutely.
They can.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's good.
And we encourage it.
And we encourage it. With that said, what are some common things to look out for? Let's say it's not within your company. You definitely do know what to bring up during your interviews. But someone who's going and shopping around, what else should they look for within a DST company? What are some of the top 3 common things to look out for?
Well, I would say fee structure.
Okay.
How is the sponsor making money? Are they participating in cash flow? Are they participating in appreciation?
Right.
So start off with just knowing exactly where all the proceeds are going.
Right.
Prior performance, like I said, And then I do think it's very important to speak with actual investors with the company.
Within the company.
Because those are actual people that they can speak with and see how
That's been through it,
right? That's on the other side. So those are my top 3 if I had to pick.
I love it. Fantastic. Well, amazing information, Louie, and thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us today. I mean, we've only scratched the surface today, but there's so much more we'd love to discuss. The good news is that we've got a dedicated text hotline where you can send in your questions. Our team guarantees a response within 24 hours, and one of our experts will be available to provide you with advice. So if you have questions or need further insights, don't hesitate to reach out through our text hotline at 626-650-9547. You can find our contact information in the description below. We're here to assist you, and thank you to our viewers. Thank you all so much for tuning in.